Hello, this is Anne Vivian. Welcome to Integrative Mystic on mindbodyspirit.fm. I am so excited. Today's show, I have a fabulous intuitive astrologer guest, and we're going to be exploring astrology today. We're going to be exploring what's happening this month and what's happening in summer 2022. And then I'm going to do a little quick collective reading for the week ahead. So let me tell you a little bit about our amazing guest this show. Valerie White-Williams is an astrologer and a clairvoyant. She's trained at the CDM Psychic Institute in Seattle, where she was also studying astrology on her own. And she was studying and creating charts for anyone who asked. She sees natal astrology as the blueprint for the soul's incarnation on Earth and interprets the current sky patterns so we can maximize our soul's growth and potential. She has a very engaging astrology YouTube channel called Cosmic Splendor, which I highly recommend. I've seen a lot of her videos on different planets and different signs and houses, and also unpacking an actual birth chart. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Valerie White-Williams onto my show. Welcome, Valerie.
Yay, welcome, Anne. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so delighted you've joined me, and I'm excited. I'm psyched to get into astrology for summer 2022. So I was wondering if you could just first introduce yourself, Valerie, and tell us a little bit about what got you into astrology and your particular astrological approach.
Yeah, well, I was that child. I was always interested in religion and spirituality. I mean, I grew up Lutheran, my family's Scandinavian, but not so strict to kind of explore. And I loved libraries. And I think when I was maybe 11 or 12, I discovered the section of religion and spirituality. And I just looked at, my mom probably would drop me off at the library, and I was haunting that section. And then I found this astrology book, which basically you could look in there and you can find out what, besides your sun sign, but all some of the other placements. And I remember getting that book, and then I was looking at it, and it was like Gemini, 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 Virgo, Virgo. And I'm like, ooh, that's
and
you're cool.
a Gemini sun, Virgo moon. Yes.
No, I'm a quadruple Gemini. I've got 5 placements in Gemini.
Oh my gosh. A lot of Gemini happening, people.
A lot of Gemini, and then also some Virgo. I have a lot of Virgo too. I have other things too, and I remember thinking, I don't like it. Of course, I wasn't like a middle schooler because, no one likes themselves when they're going through puberty and stuff like that. But it still kind of stuck with me. And I really enjoyed studying, when I went to college, I would study religions of the world. So I just always had this passion about spirituality and learning so much about how it was. So fast forward to when I was in Seattle and I started training at the CDM Psychic Institute, I don't know, it just felt, I probably found a library book, and I started learning how to do charts by hand, which, was kind of before the computer time now. It was like, and I don't even remember how I did it. And I just started, got my chart, started studying my chart. And then what was great is because astrology feels so, for lack of a better male, it's so angular, it's really technical. And it was a perfect balance with learning clairvoyance, which is completely just allowing that information to come in.
Yeah, there's more science with the astrology. It's one of the more scientific techniques in more of a regimented, like you said, analytical way, psychic sciences, psychic arts, whereas the clairvoyance you were learning at the Institute, it's not that doesn't have precision or technique, but it's a more spontaneous, in the moment. I want to use the flow.
Well, it's kind of like, astrology is kind of like we're looking at the sky patterns, and there's definitely all these geometries. Now, I'm also a musician. I play piano. I'm a trained vocalist. That's my training that I went to school. And there's kind of the same thing with the patterns in chords and jazz and things. So it's like the geometries really speak to me. And even though it feels very, angular, but it's very powerful. And then I kind of combine that. So back in those days when I was training at the CDM Psychic Institute, I was working as a waitress in a high-end restaurant. And basically I asked all of my fellow servers, can I do your chart? 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 And, most of them said, sure, why not? And so that kind of helped me just kind of learn how it works. And it's kind of evolved over time. And my chart, it's kind of like when you see your chart, you see what you came here to be in this life. And I think my preference and my focus on astrology chart is really what I call the house positions, because the house positions of your chart, to me, I said it's like a movie set or a play. So we're going to have
I love that. I love that, Valerie. Yeah.
In the setting, and it's like you're going to be in the library. It's kind of like Clue, you're in the library and you're in the garden, or you're in, and these characters that make up your personality and your angelic presence are hanging out in these locations. And so that's why I feel that there isn't bad astrology. Like people think, oh my goodness, these things are horrible, or I have, affliction and I'm broken. And so that's
the detriment. As you know, I think I have all of that. I think I have a detriment as well.
But it's not bad. It's really all about balancing. And it's really what we came here to do. And so, yeah, some people have really challenging charts and you're like, whoa, I'm working on a lot of stuff. And then some people have a lot of flow in your chart. And so to me, when we look at a chart, I'm not going to, oh, this is bad, you're inflicted, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what is this that you're working on? You came here to do this.
What's the purpose of it? What's the
purpose
strength
of
and
it?
the challenge?
Yes.
I remember reading several astrology books in my 20s that just looking at my, different planets and their signs too, once I had my birth chart. And I remember also seeing some old school astrology books that were very discouraging. And they said, they presented some of my aspects as, quote, unfortunate, or, rather, this is not a beneficial, aspect. And I remember, reading books by more modern astrologers, or seeing more modern astrologers like you on social media or in interviews or what have you, and hearing more modern astrologers talk about understanding the aspects and placements in a more, like you said, the pros and cons in a more neutral way. Every aspect has its, its purpose, and, it has to do with why you're here. So if we can look at the meaning and, not do like a black or white kind of interpretation of it, it's good or bad, but step out of that paradigm and look at, what's the meaning here? What's the purpose? How can you use this? And so I love that you do that, Valerie. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, well, I think partly too, my chart is really intense. So I have a lot of in certain spots. And so things that are told, like one of my favorite things is the 12th house. And so traditionally people think of the 12th house as bad. It's like, you're going to be in jail, or it's really kind of a bad placement, right? I have two planets, Mars and Pluto, in exact conjunction in my 12th house. Traditional astrology would say, oh, my energy is blocked, or, I'm having bad luck, or I have hidden enemies. I hate that. Hidden enemies. I don't have any hidden enemies, and it's just people find, oh my gosh. And so I think that's one of the theme of my YouTube channel, because I've done a lot of videos on the 12th house, and people thank me so much, because they've been all told that this is like the 12th house planets, it's, you're kind of broken, and, hidden enemies. But the 12th house is about the house of the mystic.
Yeah.
It refers to Pisces, going back to the one. So people that have 12th house placements are really sensitive. And the placements that are in the 12th house, it's a bit of a learning. You have to take, so any, like say moon in the, I don't have the moon, but say you have the moon in the 12th house, they are really psychic. They're the natural psychics, and they feel the energy. And sometimes they hear people's thoughts. And because that moon placement is very receptive, and then it's in the house of, the sea, because that's really what the 12th house is. We're all one. And so it takes time to grow into, see, that's the thing about your chart. It takes time to grow into your chart and see, okay, it's okay that I'm really sensitive. It's okay that I sense other energy, or I get these psychic downloads. So now we can actually make a safe place and not feel like this is bad or wrong.
Yeah.
But it's here what I have. This is my gift. See,
It turns out it's actually a gift. And, it's almost like it's how you use it too. Like I have a lot of 8th house planets and placements, as I told you. And, I like the way that you phrase that. You have to, sometimes grow into your chart. And so what might be traditionally a difficult or unfortunate or what have you placement, if we can look at it as, how can I turn this into a strength? How, what do I need to do to learn how to balance this? And maybe some placements are and aspects are harder to balance immediately than others, but that doesn't mean they don't have their worth. I think also there's a lens of, the culture and values and context of different, time periods in astrology. And, there's, I think, a certain amount of misogyny, and looking at feminine aspects maybe traditionally were seen as more, weak or whatever. And so I think there's more understanding of how we interpret a certain energy too, with a greater understanding. Don't you, Valerie?
Yeah, I totally do. And I think that because we've been living in this world that doesn't really honor mysticism and, that sort of thought, there is a lot of biases that have come down through and this, the same with tarot. Sometimes tarot has also been, not that it's not valid, but it does have some of this, energy that we're swimming through that isn't really very healthy. Like the oppositions and squares. I have a lot of squares. I'm the square queen between the Gemini and Pisces, Gemini and Virgo in my 12th house, but I don't see it as like, oh my goodness. I mean, okay, they're energizing. The thing about what they call the bad placements, the squares and the oppositions, is that they're energizing. They're a place where we're going to bring balance. We're here to balance those things. And it's energizing. Now we have the trines and the sextiles, and those are flowing. That is easy.
Yeah, I love that. There's energy in the square and the opposition, and you want some opposition. You want some tension. You want some, like, for instance, sexual tension or creative tension. You want some tension in your life. So I like looking at it in that way, Valerie. I love that spin. Yeah, I love that spin.
And if you look at charts, like I've been doing some charts, and you look at people that are very high achievers, guess what? There's going to be a lot of squares and oppositions. And because
that makes me feel so much better.
Building. Yes, I know. You think, oh my gosh, I have this giant T square. It's so horrible. Well, you're balancing these things. You have this balance, and that's what you're here to do. And so a lot of people do flip-flop, and there is, some issues where people struggle with that. But the truth is kind of like, it's like a tug of war, the opposition, but when you're balanced on the seesaw, and you give, there's that flow. So it's really a place where we can actually build, because the squares and oppositions are really building. Because if you just have flow all the time, it's like you won't have any motivation to do anything.
That's boring. You don't want to read a story that has no conflict. You want a life that's too easy. It's boring. So speaking of opposition and balancing, can you tell us a little bit about the Gemini new moon, Sagittarius full moon that we're kind of in the middle of? We got Sagittarius full moon coming up this week.
Yes, it's coming up. I think it's actually on the 14th. Of course, it depends on where you live and stuff, but we are going to have the Sagittarius full moon in Sagittarius, and it's going to be at 23 degrees. And I've actually gotten some training from another woman who really is really big on the degrees. She kind of downloaded it from the angels. She's an amazing teacher. Her name's Connie Kaplan. And she's kind of a mystic. So that really merged with me. And so 23 degrees to her system is basically more of a cosmic placement. And it's the sign of randomness. Now that's kind of a weird word. When the angels told her this information, I'm not getting too woo, but the words really is about creating a bridge. It's like a kaleidoscope is turning. And then when we stop the kaleidoscope, there's this new form. And that's kind of what we're going to be going through with this new moon. It's going to be Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is mutable fire. And I always like to talk about the principles, because it helps you understand Sagittarius is fire, but it is mutable fire, meaning it's changing. Mutable is breaking things down and preparing for the next phase. And so I think about Sagittarius as the preacher energy. And they're like, it's like John the Baptist says, hey, we need to change our ways. We need to do this. We need to fire up. And, it's very inspirational.
Yeah.
And that fire is going to bring a fire with like, let's change this. We're going to do this. Okay. So there's going to be some changes. And then the full moons are always what I call crisis points, or basically the fullness of whatever you're bringing into the world. I mean, so it depends on what you're working on. You could actually go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I need to fix it. Or, ooh, we grew this thing, it's like, harvest time from the new moon, which is where we're planting seeds. Full moon is the harvest. You're going to.
That's so funny that you should say this. It's so lining up with the cards I pulled and the energy I was feeling for this upcoming week. Please go on, Valerie.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So that's why I really like to look at the degrees when you have your chart, and then you can look at what's happening with 23 degrees in your chart. And then that's where you're going to get some insight of, this illumination, because really that's what the full moons are, is that, the new moons, we're planting seeds, we're initiating a new cycle. And the full moons were like, whoa, here it is. This is what we've birthed. This is what we made.
So if you know what is in your chart at 23 degrees, you can look at that, and then that'll give you an idea about what life area might be affected by this energy.
Exactly. And that's kind of my bias or my focus, is I really think that the house positions are more primary than people think, because I don't really like sun sign astrology as, I don't get along with you because you're Scorpio or Taurus sun. It's like, I'm sorry, that is like pointless.
Yeah, it's more about the degrees and the houses. Yeah,
and where people hit in their houses, like the house positions, the relationships that we kind of share. So, I mean, sun sign is just one aspect.
It's a detail, people. It's a detail. So for people who don't know the degrees on their chart, though, what could you maybe give as far as, some suggestions or just anticipation for the energy collectively for this?
Yeah. And that's a thing too, because I mean, astrology is inner and is outer, and we do have this collective as the geometry moves across the sky. It affects all of us. And so that the Sagittarius energy is, like I said, very fiery. It wants change, because that's what mutable energy is. Mutable energy. So we have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And the cardinal signs are on the seasonal changes. It's like the initiation. We have this initiation, and then we have the holding. Fixed is holding things. That's why fixed signs are known as stubborn, but that's their job. They're holding the energy. And then the mutable signs are breaking it down. Like, hey, let's do this. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it and prepare for the new time. So then we'll be in the new moon of Cancer, and then we're over the solstice, and it's going to initiate the new section. So Sagittarius.
Yeah, tell us. So the Sagittarian moon, full moon, I'm hearing it's a great time to embrace change, which is exactly what I tuned into for this reading. And I'm going to share these cards at the end of the session. Exactly what you're talking about. It's amazing. But it's embracing a time of change. and embracing, shaking things up and making some changes in order for improvements. And Sagittarius is also associated with abundance and higher learning and religion. So wouldn't it also be a good full moon to do something philosophical or having to do with increasing your abundance?
Yes, because Sagittarius is also very, it's the archer. You're throwing an arrow, and they want things to, and it's philosophical. It's very philosophical. It's how do I feel? What's my emotion? How can I follow my destiny? It's very much, I want to change things. I want to fire it up. So there's a bit of firing up and maybe thinking, okay, but fire can be too good. It can warm us, it can fire us up, but it can also like be destructive.
Yeah.
So that's that, and so sometimes Sagittarius can just like be impulsive and like, okay, let's go do this, let's go do that, but there is still this passion of like, we want to make the world a better place. It's kind of philosophical. And so I think for all of us, if you even don't know your astrology chart, you can still just tune in and go, okay, how can I make changes? How can I make some spiritual changes in my life to prepare, like you said, for more abundance and more ease? And as we go into Cancer season, which is coming up here soon, Cancer is cardinal water, and cardinal is taking action. So cardinal water going into Cancer season is creating a safe place, taking action to feel safe. So let's clear out some of the Sagittarius stuff that, that we need to maybe let go of or maybe enhance. I mean, it really depends, and see what's kind of like a seed that grew and you're like, okay, do I like this seed? Is this what I want? And with that Sagittarian energy, we can shift it up. We can shift it up, especially with 23 degrees, because it's a degree that is like things are shaking up, especially on the world. Everything, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's crazy out there. And there's lots of fiery energy happening around the world.
So it's kind of like a microcosm of a macrocosm.
Yes.
Well, we also have Uranus conjunct Venus, I think, this weekend. Wouldn't that also bring like sudden changes and opportunities for change with especially relationships and business?
Yes.
Venus.
Yes. Yeah. So they're going to be really aligned. And, Venus is kind of the planet. I like to think of the planet Venus is kind of like and this is Connie's kind of influenced me, is our emotional body. It's how we feel emotions. It's not like my female side or my male side, it's not really gendered like that, but Mars is your physical body. Venus is your emotional body, and it's aligning with Uranus, which is the sign of sudden change. So there could be some dynamics with relationships but here's the nice thing, it's in Taurus,
which is fixed.
It is fixed, right? So, it's probably, even though Uranus is but it's inspiration. So there might be some downloads that come to you when we have this alignment that could give you some insight in your relationships.
Yes. So it's got some pros and cons. It's got some pros and cons. Could be an intense relationship energy this weekend. So tell us, Valerie, we are kind of exploring the Sagittarius full moon, the upcoming Cancer new moon. Tell us more in fall and with this eclipse season, what we can prepare for, what we can expect.
Yes, that's been a really interesting thing that I've seen. I've not quite seen the sky patterns like this, because right now we have the North Node. So we have the nodes, and that happens in your chart. North Node is kind of where you're kind of aiming for. That's where you're supposed to like focus on. South Node is kind of what is familiar, but we're not going to get, it's like a road that we keep going on. And then even though
you're not going to grow, you're not going to grow South Node.
Yeah. So you kind of want to go to the North Node energy. Now, what's interesting is that is going on right now. So we are in Taurus is in the North Node. But what we have also is we've been having these eclipses also on the Taurus and Scorpio node. So the spring one we had was new moon, or solar eclipse in Taurus, and then we had a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And that lunar eclipse is kind of like a clean out. That was like, okay, we got to get this ick out. That's what the lunar eclipses do. It's like, okay, we're going to create this focus. Now, when we come to the fall, they reverse. They reverse the focus. So in the fall, we're going to have a new solar eclipse in Scorpio. It's almost like that Scorpio energy is being washed out, or the dark side of it, the dark. And I'm talking in the worldview now. This is not our personal chart per se, but
Right.
in the world, the Scorpionic energy is kind of getting cleaned up on a psychic level, which is good. And then that Taurus energy is getting somewhat exalted. And maybe that's because that's that fixed earth, and being, feeling comfortable on the earth and feeling comfortable in our bodies is very sensuous and very, physical. And so when we have the eclipse seasons, it lasts the whole time into the next eclipse season. A lot of astrologers go, well, that's done. We're done with that. No, we're not, especially with the sky patterns in the nodes, because we're still in holding those dichotomies.
Those energies continue to affect us and the planet until the next eclipse season.
Yes. And they kind of double up, they flip-flop. So in the fall, we're going to have new moon in Scorpio, and that'll be a chance for, like, new moon, the Scorpio energy to renew, to create a newness. Because
so it's kind of a resolution to the purging Scorpio energy, and now in the fall there's going to be planting, kind of thriving Scorpio energy, or budding, maybe is a better.
Exactly. And I know a lot of people think, oh, Scorpio energy is so bad, it's horrible, Scorpios are horrible people. I mean, that's that sun sign thing, but Scorpio is fixed water, and they hold the mysteries, they hold the secret teachings. So, I mean, well, let's say it, Scorpio's got some sexy energy going on in there as well. So there's all good things. It's really about, every sign has positive and negative, especially as we're cleaning and clearing out the collective energy on our planet.
Yeah. So the Scorpio intensity and, that lower vibrational, like, dark side of Scorpio, the jealousy and the possessiveness and all that, that can be transcended. I know I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, a lot of Scorpio and eighth house. So I appreciate how you are a lover of all signs and appreciate it.
Well, what's awesome is that if you have a lot of Scorpio in your eighth house, this eighth house is the home. See, so there are correlations between some of the houses and the placements. So you are like, quadruple Scorpionic person. And but I think we need everybody. Everybody's welcome at this table, and we all have our own gifts. And
Definitely.
I think because we grow up in a school system where we all have to be together, we have to be the same, blah, 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 then we tend to think, well, maybe this is bad, all that Scorpio energy, but that's what you're here to hold. And it's interesting, a lot of people that have Scorpio energy, they seem to be a little bit, well, it's private. That's the thing about Scorpio energy and the eighth house, is that, you have to, there's like this almost like gated community to get in, it's like only people that get me are going to get in. And that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah. And I like how, one of the things I love about astrology, by the way, I'm not actually a Scorpio, but I think I have some planets in Scorpio in my eighth house, but I've got a lot of Scorpio and I've got a lot of eighth house stuff, but it's not all Scorpio in eighth house. But anyway, I love the Scorpio energy now that I understand it more. But one thing I love about astrology, which I hear you describing right now, Valerie, is it gives you an appreciation of yourself. It's very validating to your own personality. And actually, some of this stuff reminds me of psychosynthesis and our subpersonalities, how we're a multiplicitous, multidimensional being, and we have these different, almost semi-autonomous personalities inside of us, or these inner parts, and the astrology can reflect that. But it can also, just when you look at someone else's chart, give you compassion and empathy for other people who think differently, who act differently. You know, some signs and some people have a lot of, you know, fixed signs and planets and whatnot in their chart, or there's no fixed planets. You know what I mean? They have a lot of fixed signs emphasized in their chart. And so if you're you know, working with more of a spontaneous, mutable energy in your own chart, it might create some tension, but understanding each other and understanding that, you know what, we're just different. That can, I love how it's just so validating. Like, wow, look at all of these different personality types and energy levels and, you know, interests and gifts. And that's okay. You know, we're all special. We're all on our own path. And it's okay that we're this different. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things about astrology. So with, you know, one of the things with the last eclipse that we went through, last eclipse season, with the Taurus new moon, Scorpio full moon, I like to think about it as, you know, what are these two signs figuring out together? Like Taurus with the physicality and a lot of like material values, but also just values in general, and then Scorpio with the non-physical and the what goes, you know, beyond material, and you know, balancing out those different aspects. And like with Gemini, I kind of see it that way, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. And but like Gemini and Sagittarius, you know, Gemini, like a certain, like I want to say grade school learning, or, you know, a certain type of academic learning. Sagittarius, more like, you know, higher education learning, and communication with Gemini, and communication with Sagittarius, but maybe more like collective communication. I kind of see them, you know, working with these different like questions and perspectives on the same subject.
Yeah, well, it's definitely this dichotomy. I mean, so we're here to balance ourselves and learn. Now, for me, I have all my Gemini in the 9th house, and the 9th house is like the Sagittarian house. So it's kind of inside out. I have an inside out chart, but definitely Gemini traditionally can talk. You know, they can talk about anything. They're really very easily communicating. And then Sagittarius has a bit more of a, I don't want to say higher focus, but like tuned into more worldview, perhaps.
Right.
Like Gemini is more personal, it like in a traditional sense, taking it out personal. And then Sagittarius is like, you know, has a bigger viewpoint. So that's why I have a lot of Gemini up there, but it's also, I'm in that Sagittarian house. And like the 3rd house is traditionally assigned to Gemini. And I'll never do astrology like this. You have your sun in Gemini, and you're also have your sun in the 3rd house, and it's the same. I will never make a video about that because it's not the same. It's different, because if you have placements like your sun, say, is in the 3rd house, that person is going to express themselves. It's about the expression of their personality, you know, or what they'll. So even if you're like, say, Cancer in the 3rd house, you're going to express your unique ideas. It's your ideas, your uniqueness, where Sagittarius is going to be more into, it doesn't matter what sign is in that 9th house, you're going to be interested in higher education and spirituality, and, you know, all the things that we all share philosophically and religiously. But Sagittarius, yeah. So that's kind of how it's kind of goes like inside out like this.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you describe the difference in the house and the sign. Just because it's the house ruled by the sign doesn't mean that means the exact same thing when you have an expression of that in your chart. And that's an important difference. So I know we just have a few minutes left, and you are a very busy astrologer. So I thought I would share the cards that I pulled for the week ahead, and hear if you have anything to add to that, Valerie. And then we will let our audience know how to get a hold of you and what you have going on. So I pulled Ariel, Archangel Ariel, nature, Lady, enjoy growth and reap rewards from angels and ancestors, and the Tower from the tarot. Can't make this stuff up, right? And so when I tuned into the collective energy for this upcoming week, the week of June 10th, 2022, I felt exactly what you described. Basically, I feel there are opportunities for abundance and creating more abundance and prosperity and success this week. It felt like a little bit of an indecisive kind of exploration and challenge to be decisive in the beginning of the week, especially kind of mulling over options. In the collective, people just might be a little bit wishy-washy or unsure of an actual decision. And then I felt kind of more in the beginning of the week, closer to the full moon, it feels like it's almost like if we can hold this intention or energy or create some kind of structure, then the energy can express in a really positive way. So if we can kind of clarify and come to some decisiveness this week, I feel like Spirit is guiding us to kind of, hold your intention, and the universe can meet you where you're holding that intention. But you've got to sort of clarify what you want. You've got to clarify what you're holding in order for, and a lot of this does feel like, opportunities for success and prosperity, but also with the Tower card, I'm tuning into that volatility. I was, feeling very strongly volatility when I pulled this card, that there's, sort of a collective volatility this week, a collective, change is in the air, change wants to happen. And it feels like, with this particular tarot card, that there's insights available. We talked about Venus and Uranus working together. There's insights available, flashes of that Uranian insight and intuition, but also changes that can help you make room for new abundance. And, kind of like, if you can work with some of this intense energy, you can kind of channel it in some positive ways. But there also just might be some uncomfortable changes that might be, happening in the collective with, the energy I'm tuning into, but also what you described. Valerie, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because there is a sense of comfort and enlightenment, but that Tower card is like, it's pretty intense, and it does play into that Sagittarius as well, very fiery. And then, yes, that 23 degrees, which the concept of that randomness is basically like this kaleidoscope wheel, and we're shaking. It's like the world is going to like shake up to a new pattern. And the spiritual energy that we are doing is we're going to build a bridge to something new. So that, things shake up, the fire comes in, and like, okay, here we are. We're going to bridge to something new.
And maybe that's where the holding that I was sensing coming in, if you can kind of hold the space, hold your intention, hold this structure, there can be massive change, but it can also be this, part of the puzzle here for creating positive change. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's positive new structures and new energy coming in if we can kind of get ourselves in that zone to align with this shift that wants to take place.
Yeah. And it's kind of, there's a cleansing, there's some cleansing. It's like when we were in the CDM Psychic Institute, we had this concept of creating and storing roses. And the thing is that if you keep creating, then we can't, there's a balance. We need to destroy and we think, we have to destroy things. Well, things can't grow forever. So, we're going through these systems, and so seeing where we can let go of things, where the change happens. And some of it is maybe personally, or some of it is collectively, but it's not a bad thing. And then we're going to bridge to a new understanding in the chart. And that's so cool that what you saw is kind of what's going on with all this Sagittarius stuff.
Yeah, isn't it? And, it reminds me of what we explore, kind of the paradigm we use in my multidimensional manifesting group is instead of just, you know, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction and you should always be creating and growing and things should always be expanding. That's sometimes the feeling I get when people talk about using the law of attraction. And in our group, you know, we look at manifestation is actually the process of manifestation is a cycle of, like the seasons, growing and thriving, and then letting go, and then releasing, and, you know, some death even, and some destruction, in order to make room for that new cycle where you grow something even better.
Yeah.
But you have to have those different parts of the cycle in order for the whole thing to work. And to be able to embrace that, I think, is empowering. And, you know, you're not going to be as knocked off balance if you can prepare yourself and program yourself. I can flow through these changes. I'm not always perfect at that, I will admit, but can I flow through these changes and let go, as even if it's uncomfortable?
And that's kind of what we're here to do. I think people before the modern era understood that. You know, they understood because they all lived on the lunar cycle. And it's just kind of the way things were done.
Yeah.
But yeah. And the planet's going through changes. You know, we know that.
We're one of them.
Fasten your seatbelts, because things are going to only change more. And it's something that we all have to just try to be in those waters. And the more that you can tune in to how it affects you, it's going to be really helpful, because then you can like guide your boat. You can guide your boat on to safe waters, that without feeling panicked of what might be going on around you.
I was going to say you could ride that wave, you can surf that wave, but I like yours better. You can guide your boat. You can navigate your boat to safer waters. We can do either one. We can do some intense surfing, or we can guide our boat to safer waters. So Valerie, this has been such a just like inspiring, energizing interview. Thank you so much again for coming on my show, Integrative Mystic. Would you tell our viewers and listeners, our audience, how they can get a hold of you, and any kind of, you know, website or social media you'd like to throw out there?
Yeah, so the best way I think to get a hold of me is to go to my YouTube channel, which is Cosmic Splendor. And I think my email for that is yourcosmicsplendor@gmail.com. And if that doesn't work, because you can go to just Vocal Splendor, VOCALSPLENDOR @gmail, because that's my more common one. But either one will get me to me. So
great. And you offer, you could have your chart read, and you can have your birth chart, or your what is it called, with the things that are happening now?
Oh, I don't remember. but I usually do. So when I do charts for people, I do go in really deeply about each pattern in the sky, and I will usually talk about what the effects are for them at that point. And
like the transits that are happening.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend, Valerie, check out her YouTube channel, Cosmic Splendor, if you want to see an example of what she does when she looks at someone's chart, and you can see how talented she is, and you can see how you could get the same thing if you work with her. And she also has different, you know, things happening and services. So so check out her stuff. I highly recommend. Valerie, thank you again so much for coming on my show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and remember to work with those planetary energies. And I hope that you have a beautiful Sagittarius full moon, or whenever you're listening to this, a great week in your astrological experience. I will see you at my next show or group. Thank you again for tuning in. Take care.